You're listening to the Mind Your Business podcast, episode number 58. Today, we're talking all about how to be more productive. So, stay tuned. Hi, I'm James Wedmore, and I've built a 7-figure internet business that offers the financial freedom to do what I want, when I want. And I'm the first to say that hard work and hustle are not essential ingredients for your success. So, how do you build a thriving business from the inside out? This is the Mind Your Business podcast, featuring myself and co-host Phoebe Mroczek. All right, this is it. You're here. You're on the call. Welcome. This is James Wedmore.
And I'm Phoebe Mroczek.
And this is the Mind Your Business podcast, here talking to you today in this episode about productivity.
You say that funny. I say productivity.
No. It's productivity.
I mean, tomato. But either way, you want to be more productive.
Wait, do you really call it productivity? Productivity?
Productivity, like a product launch. Productivity.
I think it's about productivity, like producing more results in your life.
I don't agree, but we will agree to disagree.
Agree to disagree. Boy, we'd like to hear from you. How do you pronounce productivity? The right way, James's way, or Phoebe's way, the wrong way? Please let us know by... I'm just kidding. Both ways are correct. Both ways are perfect.
My way's the more perfect one. But let's talk about productivity. I'm excited about this one.
Speaking about productivity, tip number 1 is less small talk. So we have an episode here on productivity, which is really important to talk about. It's something we've touched upon in different episodes. We have a very different take on it, I would say. Would you agree?
I would definitely agree.
Because the first thing we want to do is question the word productivity from the get-go. Because our goal for you, a lot of our message here is to question things like hustle and, work harder. And if it's not painful and sacrificing everything, it's not worth doing. And, I like to question a lot of that. And so productivity, the term productivity, tends to lend itself to, well, I can just work harder, work longer, work faster. And, maybe first we could start with a new definition, a new framing of what we're talking about here. I think it's important to create also a distinction between just being busy versus being effective. This isn't a race. This isn't about who can do more. This isn't, look at how long my to-do list is. Look at how many things I can check off a to-do list. Listen, I can spend all day doing things. I can spend all day doing things like, I updated my new Facebook profile image. So what? Right? So what? So I have my own definition of success. The word success is so great because it's a word that has its own definition that allows for you to create your definition of what it means to you. And so my definition of success starts with the understanding that it's about getting what you want as easily as possible, with as little effort, energy, sacrifice, or struggle as possible. That's my definition.
Which is so backwards, I think, as far as like what our industry maybe looks at. And I think that's why people like to listen to our show, because it's not what, it isn't that hustle and hard work. And, I personally, of all people, I love to check things off my to-do list. So when I heard you say that, I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
I love it. I have an app on my phone called Swipes. Have you heard of it?
No.
Yeah.
What is this?
So you put and we'll go into, some of our tips in a second, but it basically you put in every morning, or I like to put in all my to-do or all my to-dos, all my tasks for the day. And then it's just so gratifying. You get to like swipe it to the right when you're finished with it, and it like lights up green. So that is like one of my favorite things to do, is just to load everything into Swipes and then just keep swiping right when I finish things. So,
you get a dopamine hit.
Totally.
When you scratch that item off the to-do list. And if you're a J from our Myers-Briggs personality type, you get an even bigger dopamine hit. I mean, J's live for crossing stuff off the to-do list. We love it. But we all know Phoebe's a P, and she loves it as well. So I think everyone does. And we can get in the habit of this, and like they say that like dopamine gives as much of a high as cocaine does, right? So can we get stuck in this track of just crossing things off and look at everything I'm doing? Here's the deal. Yes, because I've been there. And one of the reasons why we're talking about these episodes is because, Phoebe and I both taking some time off, and me going on my honeymoon just had me really reflect on this, that it is so easy to get into this vicious cycle of go, 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 do. And the results that I accomplished while I was relaxing for a month in foreign countries and like on a beach half the day every day was still substantial and really fulfilling and rewarding and results that I'm proud of. Yet I worked a fraction of the amount of time. And a lot of it had to do with things that we're going to talk about today. We're going to share 18 tips in a moment for how we believe you can improve your effectiveness, not just look at me, more productive, more tasks, more busyness, but your effectiveness at getting results. And to me, the effectiveness is what we're talking about here. It's about getting to where you want to be, having what you want to have quicker and easier, with less resistance, less struggle, less work.
I think also it's the quality of the tasks that you're putting on this to-do list. So, even though you might have a full to-do list, and we talked about on last week's episode how that list never shrinks. That list you'll never get everything done in your to-do list. But especially when I was taking those couple weeks off, the quality of those tasks were so much more high-level tasks that there were subtasks associated with that. But the second I actually completed the project that was associated with the task, I could just check it off the list. So I think, it's definitely quality over quantity when it comes to your to-do list.
Well, and speaking of that, because, right now I'm using an old-fashioned to-do list. I love that, especially when you're, I actually have two pens. I've got like the thin ballpoint pen. I've got a notepad. It's in my hand right now, and I write down a little checkbox, and I write down what I need to do. And then I've got another pen, which is like this big, thick black marker that I just scratch it right off. And it's like, oh, I love doing that. And I have to sit there and be like, James, seriously, stop it. Because it's like, I like to say work begets work. The more work we put out there, the more things we put on that to-do list, the more it creates that. And if you want to see that in action, just go spend a Sunday afternoon cleaning your inbox, right? Your email, I'm going to get it down to 0 today. And it's like, good for you. And then you're going to come back Monday and it's going to be just as full as it was, because everyone that you just wrote to, oh, good, I finally got that email out of there. They just wrote you back. Mm-hmm. Plus all the new emails. And so we have to be very mindful that to me, it's like, you said something very fascinating. We'll get into these 18 in a moment, but this is just some good pre-chat to get us set up and warmed up for this, is that, you said this to-do list doesn't really, it's always there. You never get it done. And I think that's something to embrace, to be okay with, to not fight. It's almost as if you want to look at it as like a ratio, a vector speed, like, okay, miles per hour. How many miles am I going per hour? It's almost like with your to-do list, you want to look at how many items are going on the list versus how many are coming off. It's like the speed at which the to-do list is shrinking, because there are days when I'm like, wow, I got one item off the list, but I added 6. So instead, what I'm getting at here, if you'll bear with me, because this is just a thought that pops into my brain, is that it's not about, okay, let me get everything off the list. Let me get it down to 0. But let's keep the ratio of eliminating items higher than adding items. So you have to, it's like, could you create a discipline for yourself where you have to cross off 2 items on the list before you add another one?
It's like getting rid of clothes.
That's exactly what I was thinking about, just my wardrobe. You're always thinking about clothes, Phoebe.
That's like the last thing ever on my mind. Have you seen my fashion sense? But that's what I used to do. I don't anymore because I don't have that many clothes. But I used to say if I wanted to buy an article of clothing, I had to actually either donate it or give it away. So,
well, but I like that. I mean, yeah, so I guess it could apply to all areas of your life. I like it. It's like a diet for your to-do list, right? It's, okay, well, I'm not going to put this on here until I get these 2 things off. And I'm not saying I've done that, but what I am doing is being very aware and conscious of what's the rate at which I'm crossing things off versus the rate at which I'm adding things. And I really want the list to be shrinking, or staying the same versus ever expanding. And that's where we fall into the edge of overwhelm, and that's where you're just lost. And we have a whole episode on overwhelm, which you can talk about that, which the simple interpretation of overwhelm, or that's what it is. It's an interpretation and experience where there's too much to do and not enough time, right? And so we're not here to say, hey, to be more, it's okay. The solution to overwhelm is being more productive. That's not what we're saying here. And that's where it's going to be really different. A lot of people, it's like, yeah, I want to be more productive so I can do more. And this is really going to question a lot of that. So before we get into these tips and tricks, there's a few things I want to say first. I think most importantly, as a prerequisite, would be that you must be super crystal clear on the vision for what you want, what you're after, and why. This is huge for a lot of reasons, and this is where people are going to just turn off the episode because a lot of people don't know what they want. I could guess that you could go around the street and ask people, what are their goals? What do you want? What are you up to? What are you after? And most people can't answer that. Now, entrepreneurs are different. Most of us, we're pretty clear. But that's something that you're going to want to get crystal clear on because a lot of what we're going to go over in terms of these productivity hacks is all about using the litmus test to say, is this relevant for what you want? That's why I think we're overwhelmed, is because we're focusing our time and energy on things that are irrelevant to us, that don't make a difference in our lives, that we end up doing the things that are necessities and are important to us.
I love my business coach. He was telling me this morning, he's like, and we just implemented these things that you were telling us, and now they have a process where it's like, is this on target or off target? I love that. And I was like, that is a really great, for me, it's like a very visual thing. So when you're going through, if you do have that clear vision, you have the bullseye. So now you can tell, is this on target or is it off target?
So can you give me an example?
So for example, if you're moving towards, you're creating a product, that is the bullseye. And so now somebody approaches you about a new opportunity and you're like, is that on target towards the product launch, or creating the product, or is that off target?
Yes.
So that would be off target.
Yes.
And so that's how you can kind of assess, or your grander visions for your life. Is this going to be on target or is this going to be off target?
Yeah, I love that. So I would start, before we get into this and you get all excited about how I can be more productive and get more work done, is to really ask yourself, what do I want? What is important to me right now? And because that's hard for people, there's two ways that you can get clarity around that answer. The first is, what is the essence of what I want? Like actually being okay with the fact that what you want today could totally change tomorrow. See, that's why people don't answer it, because they're afraid that once they say it, they can't take it back. They can't change their mind. And that's not true. You can change anytime you want.
Totally. And I love what you said. And I was just going to highlight that is you were like, what do I want right now? And I think the right now is such an important piece, because what you want right now could be different from what you want in a week, in a year, all of that. So I think that's really important, just to continue to reassess what that vision is.
Well, let me give you an example of that, is that Chelsea and I have really talked about wanting our dream home. And the more we went down that tunnel, that route, that journey, the more we started to question, is that really what we want right now? Because, after just being on our honeymoon, we created new desires, which is that we want to travel more and live in more locations. So we want to do a couple months in New York, and then we want to do a couple months in London. We're saying we should do these workcation getaways 2 times a year, one in the US and then one in another country. And it's like, well, if we've just bought a multi-million-dollar home with a big mortgage and, all the costs that come with a home, can we still do that? Probably not. That money's going to go all into the house, and then you're going to feel a little bit more trapped. And then we just started looking at renting great homes in Laguna Beach, and we're like, wait a second, this is amazing. This makes it so much easier and lighter. And so what we're getting at here is that what you want can change. You have our permission to change it at any time. And so don't be afraid to write down or declare what it is you want. And you're not stuck with that. It's not set in stone. But at the very least, you can ask, well, what is the essence of what I want? What is the feeling I'm chasing? What is an experience I want to have? Not necessarily specifics yet. And then the other thing, if you're still struggling with that, is to answer the question, what do I don't want? So Phoebe, what's something, to put you on the spot, what is something right now that you don't want?
I don't want a job.
Yeah. So when you identify what you don't want, you have the opportunity to get clarity on what you do want. So if you didn't have a job, what then would you have?
I have freedom, creative control. Those are 2 things that are really important to me.
Yeah. What you don't want is just the absence of what you do want. They're both the same thing. It's the same thing, just with the do or the don't in front of it. So that's where we really want to start you off here before we get into this episode. James, I thought this was about productivity, not goal setting. To me, it's all the same thing, because the goal is the destination and it's the trajectory, and the productivity is the speed at which you get there. And what you're going to find out is 2 things. First, what if we could come from this place that you already are extremely productive and effective? That really, it's not about enhancing you and turning you into some superhero with superpowers, although that's cool, but really about removing the things that have gotten in the way. So it's like if you could imagine an old road that has a bunch of like junk in the road, like old trees that have knocked down and rocks and dirt and, you know, whatever else could be on this road. And now the road is really jam-packed with all kinds of obstructions. And what we're really doing is instead of going, oh, I know, you're just going to get in a bulldozer, a faster car, and plow through these things. It's like, no, we're going to clear the road. And so you're going to see a lot of these hacks is about removing. Wouldn't you agree?
I definitely would. I love when in one of our episodes you were talking about how a great coach just takes, you know, the human is perfect, or, you know, your coaching client is perfect. It's just removing the dirt and all the like drudge that has like, you know, accumulated on that person. And I think this is definitely kind of in the same vein as what you were talking about in that episode.
Yeah. So instead of beefing up, like to use a car analogy, instead of beefing up your engine, putting the V8 in there, 1,000 horsepower, we're lightening the load. Okay. We're going to lighten the load. We're like, well, you know, we don't need this. We can take out that and let's go lighter and be more efficient. Now, I think the other thing that you're going to notice is that the simple act of awareness of productivity, of looking consciously at, am I being effective? And asking those type of questions. Was I effective today? How did today go? What could I be doing? Just to look at it in and of itself can improve your productivity, your effectiveness, because what you focus on, what you focus your attention on grows.
What you track. So you're saying like what you identify, what you're aware of, what you track, all of that stuff is going to help you be more productive, because it's just like taking a snapshot of every day. And the more that you have that in the back of your head, the more, well, we'll talk about systems and stuff like that, but the more you're turned on to actually creating solutions as opposed to just furthering the problem.
Yes. So I think, remember too, once you get clear on what it is you're up to, what your goals are, what your vision is to just develop that sense, which you're already doing. We're preaching to the choir here, that sense of awareness around improving and increasing your effectiveness. So without further ado, we want to get into this. We want to share with you quick and easy, simple, some counterintuitive, 18 hacks for getting to your results with less effort and energy. Number one is to identify what is called the MVP, the minimum viable project or promotion. And hopefully this should be, we're going to explain what a minimum viable project is, but hopefully this should be the antidote to perfectionism. I think that's one thing that is getting in the way of our productivity and effectiveness is this, most of us as entrepreneurs are perfectionists. And the problem with being a perfectionist, a lot of it is fear. So we could have a whole episode on perfectionism, but it's a fear of not being good enough, that it's not good enough, that it's not going to be approved, that, you know, that it's not worthy enough, that it's going to be rejected, right? And so if we come from a state of belief that it's not good enough, that it's never good enough, then how could we ever get it done? And if we can't get it done, that means we're always working on something. And I see this so many times, right? Where, oh, I'm still doing this, or I still need to improve this, or I still need to add this without actually getting it out there, right? And so hopefully one antidote to that, I think there are many antidotes to perfectionism, but we all deal with it as entrepreneurs, myself included, is this concept of the minimum viable project, which is looking at your next project, maybe it's a launch, a promotion, getting your course, your product out there, and coming from this lens of what is the least amount of work that needs to be done to get this out there to the world? And if you took a really hard look and like were really strict, had real discipline around this question, there's a lot that you could shed off of the to-do list. What is the least amount of work necessary to get to the result that we're after? And we do this all the time, especially with like a brand new launch. And we did this one time, and I actually wrote about this in an email. We told the story of how I did a product launch, sold a brand new course. We asked that question, what is the minimum viable project? And we ended up stripping the entire project, the promotion, down to a series of 7 emails and a checkout page. And we did a $40,000 launch in 4 days with 7 emails and a checkout page. And you look at what we do as entrepreneurs, kind of like padding our success, right? It's like, well, I got to have this sales page out there. I got to have this other page. And I got to do this too. And I got to make this thing fancy. And I got to add this. And we just fill up this to-do list of stuff and not really getting to the source of what are the 5% items, the small 5% elements of this project that are going to have 95% of the results. And we said, listen, we don't even need a sales page for this. We can sell it in the emails through the copy. We don't need a fancy video for this. We don't even need to do a webinar, right? And sure enough, we did it and it worked. So it's challenging because what you're doing here and what you're going to see with a lot of these items is about starting to say no to things. It's not about how to work faster and work harder. Oh, here, you should just take like 10 gallons of caffeine every day. Then you'll be more productive. That's true. You will be. But can we start to question all the stuff that we think we need to do? And that's tip number 1.
And one thing on the back of that is I think that as entrepreneurs, I mean, I'm speaking very much from experience when I was creating my courses. I was like, oh my gosh, everybody else has all these amazing sales pages. So that's what I need. And I think I got so far away from what my customers actually needed from me to get the results that I was promising. And instead, I spent so much more of my time, which is what you're talking about with the, designing things in Canva and just like filling my time. And what was I going to do for my Facebook ads? And what was I going to, maybe I need to tinker around with some of these emails a little bit more, as opposed to like really coming from a place of service. And my customers, in the 3 weeks that I didn't put it out because I was playing around in, inside of Optimized Press and, inside of Aweber and all that, if I look at it from a place of like actual service to my customers, they were missing out on all the stuff that I was offering. That's a way that I was able to justify it to myself. The next round, when I put it out and it was kind of, my next thing that came out and it was kind of bare bones, but I was like, but the information's there and now you can learn and now you can take it and run with it. So that was my way of ending that course perfectionism. So number 2 is to work less. And last week on episode number 57, Play is the New Work, we talked about the University of Melbourne study where they say, working anything over 25 hours is bad for cognitive functioning. And in the book Scrum, Jeff Sutherland, he talks about how anything over a 36-hour work week makes you less productive.
And the best way to try this on, if this sounds too unbelievable, is to go give yourself the gift of a 3-day vacation. Do nothing for 3 days, but read, relax, do what you love. And that first day back, document everything you do. And I guarantee you, it is going to be one of the most productive days you've had in weeks, sometimes months. That's the power of rest. And we talk about that in full length in episode number 57. Now, moving on to number 3 for our productivity hack. This is the concept of leverage, leveraged activities. And I go into great detail in this in episode 34. So we have a full episode on this as well, because to me, this is so powerful. But the short version here is it's about spending your time on action items that can be leveraged. And it's a way of leveraged thinking and leverage acting. And so we give examples in this episode about how doing one activity can be used 3 to 4 different ways. And so one example that wasn't in that episode that I'll share with you that comes to mind right now, because this is something that I feel like has always come naturally to me, and so I've always tried to cultivate it as much as I can. If I'm going to do something, I'm asking that question, how can I use this again? How can I leverage this multiple ways? So one of my Inner Circle members was doing a launch, and they were on a hot seat, and I had an idea for them to offer a bonus during their launch. And the bonus was to do a live training on a specific topic, like a bonus webinar if you purchased. And they're like, I don't know that topic at all. And I said, I'll teach it. I'll come on to your audience and teach it for you. And they're like, no, please, like, don't take the time. I can't believe you do that. Don't. And they were like trying to refuse. And to me, it was such a no-brainer. Here's why. Number 1 is that I got to help out one of my Inner Circle members and help their launch succeed. And that action in and of itself has a lot of inherent benefits because, they become an even happier customer. Okay, there's a win. Maybe they stay a member. But also, number 2 is that I get to further brag about this Inner Circle member to other subscribers and customers, which may have them increase their desire and demand to be a part of our Inner Circle. But number 3, which was, pretty simple and self-explanatory, is that I got to be introduced to this person's audience. And not just an audience, but a buyer's audience, right? And number 4 is that I got the recording of this live training, and it has now gone into several of our bonuses for my own courses. So there are 4 direct benefits and results from 1 hour of activity. And that's how I try to look at everything. Leverage.
Number 4 is something, James, I know you guys do every Sunday, which is to write out the top 5 activities for the week. So 5 things that you want to accomplish as your to-do list, but for the week. So do you want to talk a little bit more about this? Are these specific tasks? Are these projects? What are these 5 activities?
Well, yeah, when you know what you're up to, you know what your goals are, you know what the results are, you know whether you're on target or not, is going to be identified when you have the right activities clearly mapped out, right? Before you start the week. But instead of calling it a to-do list, we call it a will-do list, which means once this goes on your what's going to happen for the week, it's very clear to you and your team that this isn't what you're intending to do. This isn't what you want to do. This is what must get accomplished before end of day Friday. And I think that's a really important distinction for you and your team that no. Listen, if we have to stay here until 4 a.m. on Friday, we're going to, because this is what we all agreed on is happening this week. No exceptions. And that's really, really, really important. So yeah, identify at least 5 activities of what you're going to be doing before you get into the week. And that brings us to productivity tip number 5, which is that either every night before you start the new day or first thing in the morning, you're identifying the 1 to 2 most important things that you need to accomplish that day. And you start with that, no distractions. And a great book to help you with this is a book called The One Thing, which we absolutely love. We've talked about it a few times, so we'll have a link to that in the show notes.
And also, one thing that I do is I actually do mine in the evening so that I can wake up and I do my morning routine, and then I already have those 1 to 2 most important things that I have to accomplish. So either every evening or every morning, I think work just as well. Now, number 6 is don't work when you don't feel like it. I think we covered that a lot last week in episode number 57. But the point that I want to drive home here is, if you aren't feeling up to it and you aren't feeling, the inspiration and you're not in that flow state or anything like that, don't try to power through. That's never going to happen. That's never going to work, and it's not going to produce your best work, and it's certainly not going to be an efficient way of working.
I mean, this is something that I can't say enough about. This is literally a whole nother level of discipline, because most of us, alpha, aggressive, go entrepreneurs, want to push past that feeling of tired and I'm just not into it right now. And I really want to challenge that, because I think it wastes even more time, because now you're trying to struggle through that project or assignment. So you're making mistakes, it's taking longer, but now you're even more tired, right? So now if that's the end of the day, you're not sleeping as well, you're not as rested, and you're starting the next day and you're not 100%. Instead of it's just listen to your body, listen to what your body needs, and the quicker you can stop and rest, the quicker you can come back on and play at 100%. That to me is more important, because the way I look at things is that this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And I need to set that pace. And that's how I set my pace. I think that's huge. Now, let's move on. Look at number 7. This is a fun one. This is looking at how we can automate as much in our lives as possible. I'm a huge fan of automation. I think that our productivity wanes, our effectiveness wanes when our brain has to dwell on things, be consumed by things, remember things. And the quicker we can automate, where we never have to think about it again, the better. And I really do, when I'm not thinking of how I can leverage something, I'm looking about how I can automate it so I never have to do it again. And I'm going to give you some examples here. First off, my favorite one that I love to share is Amazon subscription. So I wrote a blog post called Why I Buy My Toilet Paper on Amazon. And it's because, Amazon has this service where you can auto ship on a monthly reoccurring cycle, or any cycle that you want. So I have things like deodorant, toothpaste, toothbrush, toilet paper, paper towels, all the essentials. Once you kind of know how fast you go through them, you can set it up and it's automatically delivered to your house. And this means, for me, I never want to be I'm out of paper towels and I got to go get in the car And sorry, like for me, 20 minutes spent just running a little errand like that is a waste of my time. So I look to automate stuff like that, getting your payments paid for, bills, setting all that up on bill pay. So we have everything from like office rent to insurance and car payments, utilities, all of that is completely automated. Our credit card payments, like when I sign up for something, I'm like, how do I set up the auto pay? I always tease my dad because his name is Bill, and he doesn't do any of that. He's so old-fashioned. Whenever I come over to my dad's house, he's sitting there writing out checks to all these bills that he has to pay. I mean, every month he's sitting there writing a check and putting it in the mail. I'm like, why are you still doing this? That takes so much time. And when I can just like set it and forget it, it's so much nicer. But I also look for that in our business. Like, a lot of the marketing we do, like you look at Infusionsoft, holy cow, it automates everything. So we're not only automating emails, but things like our webinars, so you don't have to be on the webinar, things like thank you gifts. So we have a service that integrates Infusionsoft with send out cards. So if someone purchases right now, it sends them a gift in the mail. And I mean, the amount of things that you can do to automate in your life is unbelievable today. There's a great software app called If This Then That, IFTTT, If This Then That, yeah. And it's like a piece of software that allows you to say, hey, whenever this happens, we'll automatically have that happen. This, that. And you get to select from like hundreds and hundreds of different applications. And then there's a software like Zapier or Zapier, I don't know, that connects with different platforms and stuff. And I mean, there's so many opportunities for automation, and it's beautiful. And we should probably have an episode just on that. But you want to look, do I need to be doing this myself? Can I automate it? Even just going to an automated scheduler with coaching clients and phone calls was like such a time saver, so these things are huge.
Well, that leads us nicely into point number 8, which is document and delegate. So what we like to say is anything, just being aware of what could be outsourced. And, you just touched on scheduling clients and appointments. And something that we've talked about in our outsourcing episode was just outsourcing small tasks. So if you do a task once and it's something that you will need to do in the future, looking to create a system around that. And the software that we always recommend and we talk about a lot is Sweet Process. And that's something that I use with Princess, my VA. And so the process that we use around that is just as I'm doing the task the first time, I create a video. So I'm making her a video, screen capture video, so she can see exactly what I do and I talk her through it. And then I just ask her to go ahead and create a Sweet Process for that. And that way she documents it. We're paying her, $4 an hour to create a manual so that we know how to, or we can create a system around it for the future. And that just saves us so much time, saves me so much time and creates this process that ultimately we would love to automate at one point. But if not, we can just, if it's a monthly task, we can continue that on and she knows exactly what to do.
I love it. And tip number 9, again, you'll start to notice this is a lot about stripping away and letting go of things. And another thing that we should strip away and let go of is all the social media notifications and messaging and distractions from our phone and our computers that can easily, constantly rip us away from what we're doing. And so if you go back to tip number 5, we said, start every day with the focusing first thing. When you're ready to work, start immediately with those 1 to 2 assignments that are absolute priority. That means there are no distractions coming in from anything. You shut it all down. You shut it off. There's no email open. There's no Facebook open. Take your phone and throw it in the other room. And I'll see when I'm working on something that takes a lot of brain power, that's kind of like, this is like, I'm struggling with this. It's so fascinating to see how easily I get ripped away when a message pops up or a notification comes in. And that's a discipline that you have to develop as well, is just saying no to all those distractions. They're always going to be there. And so many people develop this social media FOMO, this fear of missing out on social media. Don't worry, it's not going anywhere. It's going to be there tomorrow. So yeah, turn off all those notifications when you're working.
This was something that has just changed my life. And I only did it about a week ago. I turned off all my Facebook notifications and it is just so refreshing to not have those popping up on my phone. And actually when I'm working, I put my phone in airplane mode and things still pop up on my Apple, on my Mac. But any of the notifications, one thing that I have now kind of taken on board is that text messages can wait, phone calls can wait. there's nothing wrong with sending someone to voicemail. So if you call me, there are very few times that I'm actually going to answer. I'm just going to let it go to voicemail because normally I'm in the middle of something. So,
and I know some people are going to have the come back and say, well, that sounds great, guys, but I use Facebook for business. Like I have a Facebook group I manage, or that's how I get my clients. And, the only thing I can say to that is that you have to schedule that, which is going to bring us into our next one, that's what I do is I schedule time. It actually goes into the to-do list, goes onto the calendar to go into my Facebook groups. When someone posts in a Facebook group that I run, I don't drop, someone posted, I got to go drop everything and give them instant attention. It doesn't work that way to me. It says, hey, I'm going to start my day doing these 2 items, and then one of my to-do items is spend 30, 40 minutes in that group, going through, making sure everyone gets supported, and then I go back to do something else. I don't just let it dictate my life. That's a very reactive way of living, and it's not conducive for effectiveness.
Right, and no one expects that. So let's just say number 10 is leverage Parkinson's law, and Parkinson's law says work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. So we talked a little bit about that last week, and the point, I know that James, you and I had 2 different takes on this, and my take was kind of what you had alluded to, which is schedule time for different projects, different tasks and assignments. So, schedule from 1 o'clock to 1:30, you're going to spend 30 minutes inside of your Facebook group commenting, making sure that your customers feel well taken care of. For me and my personal life, if you look at my Google Calendar, I have, a 30-minute time slot in there for meditation. And then I have, 12 to 1 o'clock is my workout time. I'm working with my personal trainer. When I have soccer in the evenings, my night is booked out. But I like to see what blocks are filled out on my calendar, and that can go for personal and also professional.
Yeah, and then, one thing I would say about this as well is just that it's funny that, as an entrepreneur, you're like, no, I don't want to say no to the 9 to 5. I want to work when I want. And then, the Parkinson's law says, well, if you work when you want, you're pretty much just going to always be working because the work will expand the time allowed for it. And so I would really challenge you to also create strict start and end times for when you work, especially like for me, that's become more important now that I have a wife that I live with, that even though we work together, we still want to have time together when we're not working, so to be like, no, we're done at 5. So we can go do XYZ together. We can go out to dinner together is really important. Because if you don't do that, you're just going to keep working. Well, I'm kind of in a groove right now. I'm going to just do this extra thing. And then that thing kind of pulls you. And then you get distracted on Facebook. And before you know it, it's like 9 o'clock at night. And then you don't sleep well because you've been working all night. And, and it just creates a cycle. So having strict on and off hours for me has made me more productive in the long run. Now, tip number 11, really easy one here. Say no more often. A lot of these tips, as you can see, is about not putting on the nitrous, jetpack here to move faster, but to lighten the load. And a lot of us tend, and I've been guilty of this, to say yes to everything. We think we're going to miss some $1 million opportunity here. We've talked about this in other episodes, but I say no to 99% of interviews and speaking events and other things where people are coming to me and saying, hey, could you do this? Or, hey, will you be a part of that? Or, hey, could we do this? And, and it's like, it's only 30 minutes. And it's like, yes, but it's scheduling it. It's follow-up. It's preparing. And then there's that 30 minutes. And 30 minutes should be extremely valuable to you. It's not just 30 minutes. 30 minutes, you can do a lot of extraordinary things in 30 minutes. So don't let anyone ever tell you, it's only 30 minutes. Can you just do this, quick interview for us or this quick this, So say no. I give you the permission to do that. I encourage you to do that. A lot of my clients that I work with, it's like a lot of them, I'm training them how to say no to all these things that are constantly coming in. Setting up better boundaries and being more confident in doing that is huge.
My mom always says, no is a complete sentence. I would always come up with these like elaborate lies about, no, I can't because I felt so bad. She's like, nope. Now that, once you're over 30, that was her rule. Now no is a complete sentence.
I love
it. All right. Number 12 is to integrate a mindfulness or a spirituality practice. So I know that we obviously are the Mind Your Business podcast, and this is what we're talking about a lot, but incorporating that into your daily routine. So I was saying that I schedule meditation in the morning, and I know that Tim Ferriss talks about how in your first 90 minutes, I don't know if 60 minutes or 90 minutes, but making sure that you make no decisions in that time, just allowing your brain to just kind of wander where it may, and having that set time that you already know, like you don't even have to think, you don't have to make any decisions because that first 90 minutes is already set. So integrating any kind of mindfulness practice, meditation, visualizations, we go through a lot of these throughout the podcast. And so incorporating or integrating these into your routine is a really good way to stay just kind of aware and more ultimately will make you more productive.
Tip number 13, don't let your email list be your to-do list. If you've been following our tips thus far, you know to identify a list of the top most important 5 only activities for the week, and then starting each day with that 1 to 2 important action item each day. So your email list is not your to-do list, okay? Your email list is a to-do item. It's something that you schedule time for, that you'll get to, and it really should be at the bottom of your list. It should be one of the last things that you do. You absolutely do it after you get your important 1 or 2 essential items for the day completed. Once you've done that, and those items are the things that if you just did that for the day, that's a productive day. You do those first, then you can go check email. And I like to set timers when I do my email. There's the Pomodoro technique where it's like 25 minutes of work and a 5-minute rest. So I like to set my timer and I'll just do 25 minutes of email. That really helps. And there are a lot of times that, again, like just replying to an email can be very detrimental. Like you really have to sit there and say, do I really need to reply? Can I just archive this? Okay, I got the information. Thank you. Because sometimes replying just creates more of a conversation and just fills your email list up even higher. That's why people struggle with email so much, okay? So it's not a to-do list, it's a to-do item.
Awesome. Number 14 is context switching. So this is something I used to pride myself on. And I think, a lot of women were like, oh, we can multitask. But then when you look at, well, first of all, you can't multitask to actually be productive. And if you just would focus on one thing at a time, and I love the Pomodoro technique. It's not something that works 100% for me. I have to work a little bit longer. But, if you are able to focus on one thing and then as soon as you're finished, complete the task at hand, then move on to the next one, you will find yourself being so much more productive as opposed to, James, what you were talking about with like, you see a notification, someone commented on one of your comments or, on Facebook, and then you just, okay, real quick, you'll just jump over there, or you got an email, just jump over there. It just makes you so unproductive. And then you lose your train of thought. And it just breaks up what you're actually doing and breaks up the task that you're working on at the current moment.
And so, what context switching demonstrates or measures is the amount of time that is wasted when you're doing that multitasking, and that's something that even just being aware of it can help drastically improve productivity. It's kind of like weight loss. When you're just kind of aware of what unhealthy foods do when they enter your body, you start to lose weight. You're more mindful of what food you should be eating and not eating. And I really do believe having an awareness of what it's costing you. There's a graph, we could put this in the show notes on context switching. It's scary how every time you add a new project to your list, like switching between, okay, I'm going to work on project A, project B, and project C without finishing one, you're going back and forth between the 3, the amount of time that is lost is in just shuffling between the 3, among the 3, is scary, let alone if you're doing 5 or 6 projects, which most people are. So the real hack here is focus 100% of your time on one project to completion. Okay, let's talk about number 15 as we wrap these up here. Real simple one here. Get more sleep and wake up earlier. Now, the beautiful thing here, there's tons of studies, right, on the power of sleep. People are like, oh, I pulled an all-nighter working. Okay, well, I got a full night of sleep. So, you always obviously feel more rested and have more energy when you sleep more. But there are also a lot of studies and results that people have when they wake up earlier. And the coolest thing is that since we got back from our honeymoon with the massive time change, we've been getting up at 4 in the morning, 4:30. And that's amazing because what it's really done is allowed me to have a slower morning routine without feeling like I got to jump into the day. Because it's like 6:30 now, 2 hours, and I'm like, okay, probably start working. I could get some stuff done right now. So I'm always going to encourage people to wake up earlier.
And there was one thing when I was living in China, I remember going to my acupuncturist and he was saying, what are my sleep hours? And I said, regularly I go to sleep at 11 and I'll wake up at like maybe 7 or so and try to get those 8 hours. And he goes, if you could just shift that and adjust it back an hour from 10 o'clock, to 6 o'clock for those 8 hours, then you will just feel so much more rested. I don't know if it's, something with the sleep patterns or what it is, but it's something in the Chinese acupuncture system, I guess, that makes you, I don't know if it's more productive, but feel more rested. And I kind of tested it out and I thought it worked, but it might just be in my head. I'm not sure. All right. Number 16 is we've talked about Scrum. So in order to be more productive, having those sprints with the 15-minute daily meetings. And the book Scrum by Jeff Sutherland, what he says is that every day when you're in the middle of a sprint, you have these 15-minute meetings. And in the meetings, you ask yourself, what did I do yesterday? What am I doing today? And what's getting in the way? And just having that 15-minute meeting, I know there's so many studies out there about how unproductive meetings actually are. But these 15-minute meetings in the mornings just really help to set the tone for the rest of the day and ultimately set the tone for the rest of the week. So incorporating those 15-minute meetings they do lead to more productive days.
And I love the question, what's getting in the way? I know that with my team, we are so diligent in having them give the best possible answers I'd say that's the most important question to me. What is getting in the way? And when we first started having our team answer that question, they'd say things like, well, my mom's in town, so I didn't get as much work done yesterday, and, we went out to dinner, so I was a little distracted, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm saying what within our team, the workability of the team, the communication is getting in the way. And I was like, I really want you to investigate this. I really want you to be diligent with uncovering what is something that's just not to the highest standard of effectiveness. And they started coming up with genius things. And one of the ideas that came from getting to this was one of our members noticing a lack of communication. Well, so-and-so didn't know where the link was, so I had to stop what I was doing so I could go into Infusionsoft so I could grab the link. Then I had to share it to them. But then the problem was it got changed here and they didn't get notified. And when we identified that as a problem, what's getting in the way, we created something really cool to solve it. And that's what it's about, is like shining the light on the things that are slowing the team down. And what we ended up creating was what we call the product reference sheet. And when we go into a launch or a project of any kind, we have a one sheet inside our project management software called The Pulse that lists out all the essential links and tags and vital information that anyone on the launch may need to know. What bonus is being offered on the webinar? What's the link to the checkout page? How much is it again? What's the difference between this and that? What are the tags being used? What's the link to the webinar page, right? All of that is on one page, so whether it's a support person, a project manager, or a copywriter, they can grab it instantly. That might sound like more work, but it is, life-changing when it comes to the productivity and the effectiveness of working with a team.
And tip number 17 is something I got from Gretchen Rubin, who wrote The Happiness Project. And she says that the habit of bed making is actually correlated with a greater sense of well-being and higher productivity. So I kind of looked into this a little bit more, and she was saying that when people make their bed, it's that sense of accomplishment that actually builds momentum for the rest of the day, because that's really your first task of the day. So if you start your day by making your bed, then you just go on to continue accomplishing different projects throughout the day.
Don't knock it till you try it. All right.
I have yet to try that, but I'll get on it.
Amazing. All right. Tip number 18, our final one, is just a great suggestion and invitation to exercise and move. I'm a big fan of not just working out at the gym, but doing yoga, as well as extracurricular activities like surfing. And for me, I think it is so important that we have all of that we're actually using our bodies, that we're not just sitting in a chair all day, but that we're moving, we're stretching, we're staying active. And for me, that keeps my energy levels high. That keeps us healthy. I'm sure we could find a myriad of studies proving what that does for our energy levels and our productivity. So if you've been sitting there saying, I'm too busy to work out, I don't have the time, I think it's one of these things that we're looking at backwards. That if you worked out, if you dedicated time to a holistic mind-body approach to getting the results that you want, accomplishing what you want in your life, then you would make working out or moving a top priority. And by doing that, you may just become a little bit more productive so that you could have more time. Most people say, I don't have the time, and it's because they're focusing on things that are either slowing them down or they're just not aligned with what's important to them, the vision they have for their lives. And I think having some sort of exercise and movement routine is absolutely relevant and crucial for being productive and effective. All right, so there you have it. 18 hacks, tips, tricks, and strategies for improving and increasing the effectiveness in your life. Again, I started this episode out by sharing my definition of success. And to me, it's getting what you want as easily and as effortlessly as possible. And getting what you want should include how you feel, right? Like feeling happy, feeling fulfilled, feeling proud, feeling passionate. And a lot of times when we're trying to hustle or sacrifice or struggle or force it, where's that happiness? Where's that sense of fulfillment and gratitude? So if you look at this list and start to even just take a few of these and put them into practice, the ultimate goal is to move towards what it is that you're after, to make progress towards what you want without sacrificing your current level of happiness right now. I'm James Wedmore.
I'm Phoebe Mroczek.
And thank you so much for listening. Are you frustrated that no matter how hard you hustle, no matter how much you get done in a day, you still feel like you have little results to show for it? Do you feel like you're doing everything right, but there's still something missing? Well, what if there was an easier way? What if your business could be fun, effortless, and profitable? Phoebe and I have put together a free audio MP3 for you, compiling the 77 business affirmations for creating success from the inside out. And we want to give it to you absolutely free. This is your chance to rewire your brain for bigger results in your life and your business. To get instant access absolutely free, simply visit 77affirmations.com. That's the number 77affirmations.com.